The old Toyota gave one final shudder before the engine died completely. Lisa gripped the steering wheel and felt her heart sink as the car rolled to a stop on the shoulder of Highway 87. She turned the key again. Nothing. Not even a sputter. Just silence and the sound of Wyoming wind whistling past the windows. "Mom, why did we stop?" Her son's sleepy voice came from the back seat. Lisa looked in the rearview mirror at Tommy, who was rubbing his eyes with small fists. Next to him, his little sister Bella was still asleep, her head tilted against the car seat, blonde curls stuck to her sweaty forehead. They'd been driving for 6 hours straight, and Lisa had been praying the car would make it just a little bit longer. "Just taking a break, honey," she said, forcing her voice to sound calm. "Why don't you close your eyes for a few more minutes?" Tommy nodded and settled back down. Lisa waited until she heard his breathing grow steady again, before she let out the breath she'd been holding. Her hands were shaking. She opened her wallet and counted the bills inside. $17. That was all that stood between her and complete disaster. She looked out at the landscape. Brown grass stretched in every direction, and ahead she could see the buildings of a small town. A faded green sign read Cedar Ridge, population 1847. It wasn't much, but at least it was something. They couldn't stay on the side of the highway. Lisa got out of the car and walked around to check under the hood, even though she knew next to nothing about engines. Everything looked the same as it always did, a jumble of metal and hoses that meant nothing to her. She closed the hood gently, trying not to wake the kids. The sun was getting lower in the sky, painting everything orange and gold. In a few hours it would be dark. They needed food and a place to figure out what to do next. Lisa opened the back door as quietly as she could and unbuckled Bella from her car seat. The 4-year-old stirred but didn't wake as Lisa lifted her onto her hip. Bella was small for her age, but she still felt heavy. Lisa had lost weight over the past months and didn't have much strength left. "Tommy, wake up, sweetie. We need to walk into town." The 7-year-old opened his eyes and climbed out of the car. He didn't complain, didn't ask questions. He'd learned not to over the past year. That broke Lisa's heart more than anything. A kid his age should be asking why and what and when constantly, not just accepting whatever his mother told him. They started walking. Tommy dragged his feet, kicking up small clouds of dust with each step. Bella's head rested on Lisa's shoulder, getting heavier with each passing minute. Lisa's arms ached, but she didn't put her daughter down. Let her sleep while she could. The walk to town took 20 minutes. By the time they reached the first buildings, Lisa's back was screaming and sweat was running down her face despite the cool evening air. Cedar Ridge was the kind of place that looked like it had been the same for 50 years. Old brick buildings lined Main Street. A hardware store. A feed supply shop. A bar with motorcycles parked outside. And there, like an answer to a prayer, a diner with a blue and white sign that said Maggie's Place. Through the windows, Lisa could see people eating, families in booths, an older couple sharing dessert. The warm glow of lights and the promise of food made her stomach twist with hunger. She couldn't remember the last time she'd eaten a real meal. Yesterday morning? The day before? It all blurred together. She pushed open the door with her hip and a little bell chimed overhead. The smell hit her immediately. Coffee, burgers, fresh bread. Her mouth watered and her stomach made an embarrassing growling sound. A few people glanced up at them, then went back to their meals. A woman stood at the hostess stand writing something in a book. She was maybe 50, with dark hair pulled back tight and lips pressed into a thin line. She looked up at Lisa and the children, and her expression didn't exactly scream welcome. "Help you?" she asked. Lisa shifted Bella's weight and tried to smile. "Just a table for 3, please." The hostess looked them over slowly. Lisa knew what she saw. Wrinkled clothes that had been slept in, dust on their shoes, tangled hair. They looked exactly like what they were, people at the end of their rope. "We're pretty full right now," the hostess said, even though Lisa could see at least 4 empty tables. Tommy pressed against Lisa's side, and she put her free hand on his shoulder. "Please," she said quietly. "My kids haven't eaten since yesterday." Something flickered across the hostess's face, but it wasn't sympathy. "Look, I don't know what you're expecting, but this isn't a charity." Lisa felt heat creep up her neck. She glanced around and saw that more people were watching now. Listening. She lowered her voice even more. "I can pay. Do you have anything that doesn't cost too much? Maybe some soup or bread from yesterday? I have $17. The kids need to eat." The hostess crossed her arms. Our cheapest meal is $12. That's one meal. You do the math. Please, Lisa said again, hating how desperate she sounded. Isn't there anything? I already told you we don't do charity. The hostess's voice was getting louder. We run a business here. If you can't afford to eat, maybe you should try the church. I think they do a food pantry on Thursdays. Lisa's face burned. Tommy was looking up at her with worried eyes. Bella was starting to wake up, sensing something was wrong. Lisa blinked hard against the tears that threatened to spill over. She couldn't cry, not here, not in front of everyone. Okay, she whispered. I'm sorry to bother you. She was turning toward the door, trying to figure out where they would go next, what they would do, when a voice rang out from the back of the diner. Now hold on just a minute there. Everyone turned to look. An older man was standing up from a corner booth. He wore jeans, scuffed boots, and a plaid shirt with the sleeves rolled up. A tan cowboy hat sat on the table next to his coffee cup. His face was weathered and lined, the kind of face that came from spending years in the sun. But his eyes were kind. He walked toward them with an easy stride, and Lisa noticed that people seemed to sit up a little straighter as he passed. He stopped in front of the hostess and tipped his head slightly, almost like a nod but more polite. Diane, he said, his voice calm but firm. These folks are going to be eating with me tonight. The hostess, Diane, opened her mouth and then closed it again. The man turned to Lisa and smiled, the kind of smile that reached his eyes and made the corners crinkle up. Ma'am, I hope you don't mind, but I've gone and ordered way too much food for one person. Been doing that for years. My wife used to scold me for it. His voice was gentle, almost apologetic. Would you and your little ones be willing to join me? I sure could use the company, and it'd be a shame to let all that food go to waste. Lisa stared at him. She couldn't speak, couldn't make her voice work. Tommy pressed closer to her side, and Bella lifted her head from Lisa's shoulder to peek at the stranger. The man knelt down so he was at Tommy's eye level. What's your name, son? Tommy, the boy said quietly. Well, Tommy, I'm about to have the best chicken fried steak in the whole state of Wyoming. You ever had chicken fried steak? Tommy shook his head. Then you're in for a treat. The man stood back up and looked at Lisa. His eyes were understanding, like he knew exactly how hard this was for her. Please, he said simply. It would be my pleasure. And just like that, Lisa felt something break loose in her chest. A tear rolled down her cheek and she couldn't stop it. She nodded, unable to trust her voice. The cowboy's booth was in the back corner, away from most of the noise. Lisa carried Bella while Tommy walked close beside her, his hand gripping the hem of her shirt. She could feel every eye in the diner following them as they made their way across the worn linoleum floor. The man gestured to the vinyl seat across from him. Please make yourselves comfortable. Lisa slid into the booth with Bella still on her lap. The little girl was fully awake now, looking around with wide blue eyes. Tommy climbed in next to his mother and immediately stared down at the table, his cheeks still pink from what had happened at the front door. I'm Robert, by the way, the cowboy said, settling back into his seat. But most folks around here call me Rob. Lisa, she managed to say, her voice still shaky. And this is Tommy and Bella. Rob smiled at the children. Those are fine names, real fine names. He picked up his coffee cup and took a sip, giving Lisa a moment to collect herself. She noticed his hands were rough and calloused, the hands of someone who worked outside. There was a kindness in the way he moved, nothing rushed or aggressive about him. Diane appeared at the table, her expression tight. She didn't look at Lisa at all, just focused on Rob. What can I get for you? Well now, Rob said, leaning back and rubbing his chin like he was thinking real hard about it. I'm feeling mighty hungry tonight. Let's start with some appetizers for the table. How about some mozzarella sticks and those chicken tenders? Kids usually like those, don't they? He glanced at Tommy and Bella. Both children nodded, though Tommy still wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. And for the main course, Rob continued, I'll have the chicken fried steak with all the fixings. And let's see, why don't we get a couple more of those and maybe a burger for the young man here? Does that sound good to you, Tommy? Tommy finally looked up, his eyes uncertain. I can have a burger? You sure can. With fries, too. And Bella, what about you? Do you like chicken strips or maybe some mac and cheese? Bella buried her fay. Surging Lisa's shoulder for a moment, then peeked out. Mac and cheese, she whispered. Mac and cheese it is, Rob said. And let's get some milk for the kids. Chocolate milk if they want it. Chocolate? Bella's eyes got even wider. Rob winked at her. Best chocolate milk in 3 counties, or so I'm told. Diane scribbled everything down, her pen scratching hard against her notepad. Anything else? That should do it for now, Rob said pleasantly. Oh, and Diane? Could you make sure the kitchen doesn't rush it? We're not in any hurry here. Diane nodded stiffly and walked away. As soon as she was gone, Lisa felt some of the tension drain from her shoulders. She looked at Rob, trying to find the words to express what his kindness meant. You don't have to do this, she said quietly. Really? I don't want you to think we're the kind of people who go around looking for handouts. Rob held up his hand gently. I don't think that at all. Not for 1 second. He paused, turning his coffee cup in his hands. You know, about 15 years ago I hit a rough patch myself. My wife got sick, real sick. We had medical bills piling up so high I couldn't see the top of them. Insurance didn't cover half of what she needed. He stared into his coffee for a moment, and Lisa could see the memory was still painful. One day I was at the hardware store, trying to buy some supplies to fix a fence that had come down. I was counting out my money, trying to figure out if I had enough when I realized I was about $5 short. I was about to put some stuff back when the man behind me in line just reached over and handed me a $10 bill. Rob looked up at Lisa. I tried to refuse it. Told him I couldn't take his money. You know what he said to me? He said, "It's not my money. It's just passing through my hands on its way to someone who needs it more." That stuck with me. Tommy was listening now, his attention focused on Rob. That man didn't know me from Adam, Rob continued. Didn't know my situation or my troubles. He just saw someone who needed a hand and he helped. My wife, she always said that kindness is like a river. It's supposed to flow through you, not get dammed up. Is your wife okay now? Tommy asked suddenly, his voice small. Rob's smile was sad but genuine. She passed away 3 years ago, son. But she lived 7 years longer than the doctors said she would, and those were 7 good years. I got to spend them with her, and that's what matters. Lisa felt fresh tears threatening. She blinked them back and squeezed Tommy's hand under the table. The food started arriving, and it came in waves. First the mozzarella sticks, golden brown and stretching cheese when you pulled them apart. Then the chicken tenders with 3 different kinds of dipping sauce. Bella's eyes lit up when she saw the chocolate milk in a tall glass with whipped cream on top. Go on, Rob encouraged them. Don't let it get cold. Tommy looked at his mother for permission. When she nodded, he reached for a mozzarella stick like he was afraid it might disappear if he moved too fast. Bella grabbed a chicken tender with both hands. Lisa watched her children eat and felt something crack open inside her chest. It had been so long since she'd seen them enjoy food like this, not just shoving down whatever was cheapest or fastest. They looked like regular kids again, not scared and hungry little shadows. Rob kept up a steady stream of gentle conversation while they ate. He asked Tommy about school, what subjects he liked best. He asked Bella about her favorite animals. He didn't ask the hard questions, didn't pry into why they were alone on the highway or where they were going. He just talked to them like people, like they mattered. When the main courses arrived, Lisa tried to protest again. This is too much. Really, I can't accept all this. You're not accepting anything, Rob said firmly but kindly. You're doing me a favor. I told you I ordered too much. Besides, watching kids enjoy a good meal is worth more than the price of the food. Lisa took a bite of her chicken fried steak and almost cried again. It was hot and crispy and covered in creamy gravy. She couldn't remember the last time she'd tasted anything so good. Tommy was working his way through his burger with the focus of someone who hadn't had a decent meal in days. Bella had mac and cheese all over her face and was grinning between bites. The diner had gotten quieter. Lisa noticed that fewer people were staring now. An older woman at the next table caught her eye and smiled, actually smiled with warmth in it. A man in work clothes nodded at Rob as he passed their table on his way out. You've lived here a long time? Lisa asked Rob, trying to make conversation, trying to give something back even if it was just words. All my life, Rob said. Born in a house about 10 miles from here. Took over my father's ranch when he retired. It's not a big operation, but it keeps me busy. Gives me a reason to get up in the morning. It must be nice, Lisa said softly. Having roots somewhere. Belonging. Rob looked at her, really looked at her, and she felt like he could see all the way through to everything she'd been carrying. Where are you headed, if you don't mind my asking? Lisa took a breath. She'd been holding everything in for so long that the truth came spilling out before she could stop it. Montana. My sister lives there. She said we could stay with her until I get back on my feet. That's good. Family's important. Rob paused. Your car break down? Lisa nodded. On the highway just outside of town. I don't know what's wrong with it. I don't know anything about cars. I've got a friend who runs a garage here in town. Good man, honest. I could give him a call after we finish eating. Have him take a look at it. I can't afford much, Lisa admitted, shame heating her face again. I've only got $17. Let's worry about that later, Rob said. First things first. Let's make sure these little ones get fed and you all have a place to sleep tonight. Then we'll figure out the rest. Tommy was looking at Rob like he was some kind of superhero. Bella had climbed down from Lisa's lap and was now sitting next to Tommy, swinging her legs under the table and humming to herself as she ate. Lisa felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. Just a tiny flicker of it. But it was there. This stranger, this cowboy with kind eyes and weathered hands, had given them more than a meal. He'd given them dignity. He'd reminded them that they were human beings who deserved kindness. I don't know how to thank you, Lisa said, her voice breaking. Rob smiled. No thanks needed. Just do the same for someone else when you get the chance. That's how it works. As they continued eating, Lisa looked around the diner. The hostess was nowhere to be seen. The other customers had gone back to their own meals. And here at this table in the back corner, 3 strangers who'd been turned away had found a place to belong, at least for one evening. Sometimes, Lisa thought, that's all it takes. One person willing to see you. One person willing to help. One small act of kindness that reminds you the world isn't entirely hard and cold. She watched Rob laugh at something Tommy said, watched Bella reach for another chicken tender, and felt grateful in a way that went deeper than words. After they finished eating, Rob ordered pie for everyone. Apple pie with ice cream that melted into sweet puddles on the warm crust. Bella got more on her face than in her mouth, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Lisa laughed. Really laughed. You've got a little something right there, Rob told Bella, pointing to his own chin. Bella wiped at her face with the back of her hand, smearing the ice cream even more. Tommy giggled, and that sound was like music to Lisa's ears. Her son hadn't giggled in months. When the check came, Rob didn't even let Lisa see it. He just pulled out his worn leather wallet and placed some bills on the table, waving away her protest before she could even start. Now then, he said, settling his hat back on his head, let's go see about that car of yours. They walked out of the diner together, and Lisa noticed something had changed. The few people who were still eating watched them leave, but there was no judgment in their eyes anymore. One woman even gave her a small nod. Lisa realized that being with Rob had somehow made them acceptable, like his kindness had vouched for them. The sun had set completely now, and Main Street was lit by old-fashioned street lamps that cast pools of yellow light on the sidewalk. Rob's truck was parked right in front of the diner, a dusty blue Ford that had seen better days but looked well-maintained. Hop in, he said, opening the passenger door. We'll drive out to where you left your car. Lisa buckled Bella into the middle seat while Tommy climbed in next to her. The truck smelled like leather and coffee and something else, maybe hay or grass. It was a working truck, not fancy, but clean and comfortable. Rob drove slowly through town, pointing out different buildings. That's the library there. Ms. Peterson runs it. She's got a soft spot for kids, always doing story time on Saturday mornings. And that's the grocery store, Mitchell's. Been in the same family for 40 years. He was trying to distract them, Lisa realized, trying to make things feel normal and calm. She appreciated it more than he could know. When they reached Lisa's car on the highway, it looked even more pathetic than she remembered. One hubcap was missing. The paint was faded and peeling in places, and now it sat there lifeless on the shoulder like a beached whale. Rob pulled over and got out, walking around Lisa's car with the practiced eye of someone who knew his way around vehicles. He popped the hood and peered inside, using a flashlight from his truck to see better. He said after a minute. Could be a few things. My God. To be the alternator might be the fuel pump. Hard to say for certain in the dark. He closed the hood gently. Tell you what, I'll call my buddy Danny. He runs the garage in town. We'll get him to tow it in tomorrow morning and take a proper look at it. I can't pay for a tow, Lisa said, her stomach knotting up again. I told you I only have $17. Rob pulled out his cell phone, an older flip phone that he handled like he wasn't entirely comfortable with technology. Let's just see what Danny says first, He owes me a favor anyway. I helped him fix his barn roof last summer. He made the call right there, explaining the situation to someone named Danny. Lisa could only hear Rob's side of the conversation, but it sounded promising. Rob laughed at something Danny said, then gave him the location of the car. "Yep, that's the spot," Rob said. "First thing in the morning?" "That'd be perfect. Thanks, buddy. I owe you one." He hung up and turned to Lisa. "Danny'll get it towed in tomorrow at 8. No charge for the tow. He'll take a look at it and let us know what it needs." "Us?" Lisa asked. "Well, I figure you'll need a place to stay tonight, and I want to be there when Danny gives his assessment. If that's all right with you." Lisa felt overwhelmed again. This man kept helping them, kept giving without asking for anything in return. "Why are you doing all this? You don't even know us." Rob was quiet for a moment, looking out at the dark highway. "My wife and I never had kids. Wanted them, but it just didn't happen for us. She used to say that meant we had more love to give to other people, that maybe that was our purpose." He looked at Lisa, his weathered face kind in the dim light. "I guess I like to think she was right." Tommy had fallen asleep in the truck, his head tilted against the seat. Bella was fighting it, her eyes drooping and snapping open every few seconds. "There's a motel in town," Rob said. "The Cedar Ridge Inn. It's not fancy, but it's clean, and the owner's a decent fellow. Name's Pete. I'll take you over there, get you set up for the night." "I can't afford a motel room," Lisa said, feeling like a broken record. But it was the truth. $17 wouldn't cover a room anywhere. "I know Pete pretty well," Rob said. "Let me talk to him." They drove back into town, and Rob pulled up in front of a small motel with a neon sign showing a vacancy. The building was single-story, painted white with blue trim, and looked like it had been there since the 1960s. Rob told Lisa to wait in the truck while he went into the office. Through the window, she could see him talking to a bald man behind the counter. They talked for a few minutes, and then Rob pulled out his wallet. The man behind the counter shook his head at first, but Rob insisted, and finally the man accepted whatever Rob was offering. Rob came back out with a key attached to a diamond-shaped plastic tag. "Room 7, he said. "You're all set for tonight." "You paid for it," Lisa said. "It wasn't a question. Pete gave me a deal. Friend discount." Rob smiled, but Lisa knew he was lying to make her feel better. "Come on, let's get these kids into a real bed." Room 7 was at the end of the row. Rob carried Tommy, who didn't wake up even when Rob lifted him out of the truck. Lisa carried Bella, who had finally given up fighting sleep. The room was simple but clean, like Rob had said. 2 double beds with quilted covers, a small TV bolted to the dresser, a bathroom with white tiles. To Lisa, it looked like a palace. Rob laid Tommy gently on the bed nearest the door. Lisa put Bella on the other bed and pulled off her shoes. Both children curled up immediately, exhausted from the long day. "There's a coffee maker there if you want it in the morning," Rob said quietly, pointing to the small table by the window. "And Pete said the continental breakfast starts at 7. Nothing fancy, just cereal and toast and coffee, but it's free." Lisa turned to face him, this stranger who had become their guardian angel. "I don't know what to say. Thank you doesn't seem like enough." "It's enough," Rob assured her. He pulled a business card from his pocket and set it on the table. "That's got my number on it. I'll be by tomorrow morning around 8 to take you to Danny's garage. We'll figure out what's wrong with your car and go from there. What if it's expensive to fix? What if I can't afford it?" Rob put his hat back on and adjusted it, a gesture that seemed automatic. "Let's cross that bridge when we come to it. No use worrying about tomorrow's problems tonight. You've got a safe place to sleep and food in your belly. That's what matters right now." He walked toward the door, then paused with his hand on the knob. "Lisa, I know you're probably used to taking care of everything yourself. I know asking for help isn't easy. But sometimes accepting kindness is the bravest thing you can do." After he left, Lisa sat on the edge of the bed and looked at her children sleeping peacefully. Tommy's face was relaxed, no worry lines between his eyebrows for once. Bella was smiling in her sleep. She picked up Rob's business card and looked at it. Robert Chen, Cedar Ridge Ranch, it said, with a phone number below. She thought about what he'd said in the diner, about kindness being like a river that flows through you. She'd been so focused on surviving, on protecting her kids and making it through each day, that she'd forgotten people could still be good, that strangers could still care. Lisa got up and looked out the window at the quiet street. Cedar Ridge seemed like a place out of time, where people still knew their neighbors and helped each other without expecting anything in return. She'd been so desperate to get to Montana to reach her sister and start over. But maybe she'd already found what she was looking for right here. She checked on both kids one more time, pulling the covers over them, even though the room was warm. Then she went into the bathroom and looked at herself in the mirror. She looked tired, worn down, older than her 32 years. But there was something different in her eyes tonight. That flicker of hope she'd felt at dinner was still there, burning a little brighter. Lisa took a long shower, letting the hot water wash away the road dust and the fear and the shame. She stood under the spray until the water started to run cold, and when she got out, she felt almost human again. She dried off with the rough white towels and put her clothes back on. Tomorrow, she'd worry about clean clothes and what came next. Tonight, she just needed to sleep. Before she turned off the light, Lisa looked at Rob's business card one more time. She'd never believed in angels or miracles or any of that stuff. But tonight, a cowboy in a worn hat and dusty boots had saved them. Not just fed them or given them shelter, but reminded them that they were worth saving. She tucked the card carefully into her wallet next to her $17 and climbed into bed next to Bella. Her daughter made a small sound and snuggled closer. Lisa wrapped her arm around her and closed her eyes. For the first time in months, she felt safe. Lisa woke to sunlight streaming through the thin curtains and the sound of birds chirping outside. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then it all came rushing back. The broken-down car, the diner, Rob. She turned her head and saw both kids still sleeping soundly, their faces peaceful and relaxed. She checked the clock on the nightstand. 6:30. They had time before Rob came by. Lisa slipped out of bed quietly and got herself ready, splashing water on her face and running her fingers through her tangled hair. She looked at her reflection and barely recognized herself. But today felt different somehow, like maybe things could get better. Tommy stirred first, sitting up and looking around confused. "Mom, where are we?" "We're at a motel, baby. Remember the nice man from last night? He got us a room here." Tommy nodded slowly, the memory coming back to him. "Is he coming back?" "Yes, he's going to help us with the car this morning." Bella woke up next, stretching her little arms above her head and yawning. "I'm hungry," she announced. "There's breakfast downstairs," Lisa said. "Let's get you both cleaned up first." They washed faces and hands in the small bathroom, and Lisa did her best to smooth down their hair. They still looked rumpled and worn, but at least they were clean. She gathered their few belongings, making sure they had everything. The business card went back into her wallet. The breakfast area was a small room off the main office with a few tables and a counter with cereal, bread for toasting, and a coffee maker that was already brewing. Pete, the motel owner, was there wiping down the tables. "Morning," he said with a friendly smile. "Help yourselves. There's orange juice in the cooler there." "Thank you," Lisa said, feeling awkward. She wondered how much he knew about their situation. The kids loaded up on cereal and toast. Lisa poured herself coffee and took a piece of toast, even though her stomach was too nervous to really want food. She kept glancing at the clock. 7:15, 7:30, 7:45. At exactly 8 o'clock, she heard a truck pull up outside. Through the window, she saw Rob's blue Ford. Her heart started beating faster. "He's here," Tommy said, jumping up from his chair. They met Rob outside. He looked the same as yesterday, jeans and boots and that weathered cowboy hat. But this morning he had a thermos of coffee with him and a bag from what looked like a bakery. "Morning," he said cheerfully. "Thought you might like some fresh donuts. Mrs. Henderson makes the best in town." Bella's eyes lit up when she saw the pink frosted donut Rob offered her. Tommy took a chocolate one, thanking Rob quietly. "Sleep okay?" Rob asked Lisa as they climbed into his truck. "Better than we have in weeks," she admitted. "Thank you again for everything. No need to keep thanking me," Rob said with a wave of his hand. "Now let's go see what Danny has to say about your car." The garage was on the edge of town, a big metal building with 3 bay doors and a small office attached to the front. Lisa's car was already there, parked in one of the bays with the hood up. A man in coveralls was bent over the engine, tools spread out on a cart beside him. "That's Danny," Rob said as they got out of the truck. Danny straightened up when he heard them approach. He was younger than Rob, maybe in his 40s, with grease stains on his hands and a friendly face. "Morning, Rob, this must be Lisa." "That's right," Rob said. "What's the verdict?" Danny wiped his hands on a rag and shook his head. "Well, it's not great news. The alternator's shot, and the fuel pump's on its last legs. Plus, you've got a radiator leak I wouldn't trust for more than another 50 miles. Lisa felt her heart sink. How much would all that cost to fix? Danny looked uncomfortable. Parts and labor. You're looking at about $1,200. Maybe a bit less if I can find some used parts, but even then we're talking close to $1,000. $1,000. Lisa might as well have said $1 million. She felt dizzy. I can't afford that. I don't have that kind of money. I figured as much, Danny said kindly. I'm sorry. I wish I had better news. Lisa looked at her car, that beat-up old Toyota that had carried them this far. It had gotten them out of their old life, through 3 states, almost to where they needed to go, and now it was done. She felt Tommy press against her side and automatically put her arm around him. What about selling it for parts? She asked, her voice small. Would that get us anything? Danny scratched his head. In this condition? Maybe $200. $300 if you're lucky. $200. That plus the 17 she had would get them bus tickets partway to Montana, but not all the way. And then what? They'd be stranded somewhere else with even less money than they had now. I need to think, Lisa said, feeling panic rising in her chest. I need to figure out what to do. Take your time, Danny said. The car's not going anywhere. You can leave it here as long as you need. They walked back outside into the bright morning sun. Lisa felt like she might cry or scream or both. She'd been so close to making it to her sister's place, to having a plan, to getting her kids somewhere safe and stable, and now it was all falling apart again. Rob was quiet, letting her process. Finally, he spoke, his voice gentle. Lisa, I've been thinking, I might have a solution if you're willing to hear it. She looked at him, desperate for anything that might help. I'm listening. I've got a ranch about 10 miles outside of town, he said. Like I mentioned yesterday, it's not a big operation, but it keeps me busy. The thing is, I'm not getting any younger, and the paperwork side of things has gotten away from me. Bills, invoices, scheduling, all that office stuff. I've been meaning to hire someone to help with it for months now, but I haven't gotten around to it. Lisa wasn't sure where he was going with this. Okay. What I'm saying is I could use someone. The pay isn't much, maybe $30,000 a year to start. But it comes with health insurance, and there's a small cottage on the property that's been sitting empty since my ranch hand retired last year. It's got 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, a bathroom. Nothing fancy, but it's solid and warm. Lisa stared at him. Are you offering me a job? I am, Rob said. If you want it. I know you were headed to Montana, and I'm not trying to stop you from getting to your sister. But if you need a place to land for a while to get back on your feet, the offer's there. You don't even know me, Lisa said, the same thing she'd said last night. You don't know if I can do the work or if I'm reliable or anything about me. Rob smiled. I know you're a mother doing everything she can to take care of her kids. I know you've got grit driving across the country in a dying car with almost no money. I know you were willing to go hungry so your children could eat. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. Lisa felt tears streaming down her face before she even realized she was crying. Tommy looked up at her, worried. Mom, are you okay? I'm okay, baby, she managed to say. I'm okay. Bella tugged on Rob's sleeve. Are we going to live on a ranch? With horses? Rob crouched down to her level. We do have horses. And some cows. And a dog named Rusty who loves kids. Would you like that? Bella nodded enthusiastically. Tommy looked more cautious, but there was hope in his eyes. Would we have our own room? He asked. You sure would, Rob told him. The cottage has 2 bedrooms. You and your sister could have your own rooms if you wanted. Lisa tried to get her emotions under control. This was too much. Too good to be true. Things like this didn't happen to people like her. I don't understand why you're doing this. What do you get out of it? Rob stood back up and looked at her seriously. I get help that I need. I get to stop worrying about whether my paperwork's in order. And honestly, I get some life back in that old house. It's been too quiet since my wife passed. Too empty, he paused. But more than that, I get to do what my wife would have wanted. She always said we were blessed so we could be a blessing to others. Lisa looked at her children, then at the broken-down car in the garage, then back at Rob. She thought about her sister in Montana, about the plan she'd been clinging to for months. But that plan had involved arriving with a working car and at least some money in her pocket. That plan was already broken. Can I call my sister? She asked. I need to talk to her first. Of course, Rob said. You can use my phone, or there's a payphone in town if you'd rather have privacy. Your phone is fine, Lisa said. If that's okay. Rob handed her his flip phone. Lisa dialed her sister's number, her hands shaking. It rang 4 times before Rachel answered, sounding half asleep. Hello? Rachel, it's me, Lisa. Lisa. Oh my God, where are you? I've been worried sick. You said you'd call when you got close. I know, I'm sorry. We broke down in Wyoming, a place called Cedar Ridge. Lisa took a deep breath. The car's dead. It needs repairs we can't afford. Oh no. Oh, Lisa, what are you going to do? Lisa looked at Rob, who was showing Tommy and Bella a bird's nest in one of the garage's gutters, giving her space to talk. Someone here offered me a job and a place to live. A man named Rob. He helped us yesterday when we had nothing. A stranger offered you a job? Lisa, that sounds suspicious. Is this some kind of scam? I don't think so, Lisa said. He seems genuine. And Rachel, we're out of options. I have $17. The car's worthless. I can't make it to Montana. There was a long silence on the other end. I'm sorry, Rachel finally said, her voice thick. I wish I could send you money, but things are tight here too. Michael's hours got cut and we're barely making rent ourselves. I know, Lisa said. I'm not asking for money. I just wanted to tell you what was happening, and to ask what you think I should do. Another pause. Is he good to the kids? This Rob person? Lisa watched Rob lift Bella up so she could see into the bird's nest better. Bella was giggling, her small hand pointing at something inside. Yeah, Lisa said softly. He's good to them. Then maybe you should stay, Rachel said. At least for a little while. Get some money saved up. Fix the car. Then if you still want to come to Montana, you can. But Lisa, you can't keep running on empty. You need to stop somewhere safe. Lisa knew her sister was right. She'd been running on fumes in every sense of the word. Okay, she said. Okay, I'll stay. After she hung up, Lisa walked over to Rob and handed him back his phone. I talked to my sister. If the offer's still open, I'd like to accept it. The job, the cottage, all of it. Rob's face broke into a wide smile. The offer's absolutely still open. Welcome to Cedar Ridge, Lisa. 6 months later, Lisa stood at the kitchen window of the cottage, washing breakfast dishes and watching Tommy chase Rusty across the yard. The old dog was slower than her son, but he played along, letting Tommy catch up before bounding away again. Their laughter carried through the open window on the cool morning breeze. The cottage had become home in ways Lisa never expected. The first week had been strange, tiptoeing around and feeling like a guest in someone else's life. But Rob had a way of making them feel like they belonged. He'd helped them move in their few belongings, had the place stocked with groceries before they arrived, even put fresh flowers on the kitchen table. You'll want to make it your own, he'd said. Paint the walls if you like. Hang pictures. This is your home now. Slowly they had. Tommy's drawings covered the refrigerator. Bella's toys were scattered across the living room floor. Lisa had bought curtains at the thrift store in town and hung them herself. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. The work had been easier than she expected. Rob kept meticulous records in his own way. Everything written in notebooks and on scraps of paper. Lisa's job was to organize it all into a system that actually made sense. She created spreadsheets for expenses, set up a filing system, and started handling the billing and invoicing. It turned out she had a knack for it. I don't know how you make sense of all this, Rob had said one day, looking at the neat rows of numbers on the computer screen. To me, it just looks like a bunch of gibberish. It's like a puzzle, Lisa had explained. Everything has its place. You just have to find where the pieces fit. The health insurance had kicked in after 30 days, and Lisa had taken both kids for checkups. Hay desperately needed. Tommy needed glasses, which explained why he'd been squinting at everything. Bella had an ear infection that had probably been bothering her for weeks. Getting them healthy again felt like a weight lifting off Lisa's chest. The people in town had warmed up to them too. Once word got around that Rob had hired Lisa, that she wasn't just passing through, attitudes shifted. The librarian, Ms. Peterson, signed the kids up for library cards and recommended books for both of them. The woman who ran the grocery store always slipped extra cookies into their bag. Even Diane from the diner had thawed, giving Lisa a nod when they saw each other on the street. Lisa had gone back to Maggie's place once, about a month after they'd arrived. She'd wanted to face it, to walk in with her head held high instead of desperate and begging. Rob had come with her, and they'd sat in that same back booth. Diane had approached their table, her expression unreadable. For a moment, nobody said anything. Then Diane had set down 2 glasses of water and spoke, her voice quiet. "I'm sorry for how I treated you that first night. It wasn't right." Lisa had been so surprised she didn't know what to say. Finally she managed, "Thank you. I appreciate that." Diane had nodded and walked away. It wasn't a big moment, not dramatic or emotional, but it mattered. It was acknowledgement that she'd been wrong, that Lisa deserved better. Sometimes that's all you can ask for. Now Lisa dried the last dish and set it in the cupboard. Through the other window, she could see the main house where Rob lived. He'd invited them over for dinner tonight, something he did at least twice a week. He'd become like family, not a father figure exactly, more like a grandfather to the kids and a mentor to Lisa. Someone solid and dependable in a world that had felt unstable for so long. The front door burst open and Bella ran in, her cheeks flushed and her hair wild. Mom. Rob says the baby calf was born. Can we go see it, please?" Lisa smiled and wiped her hands on the dish towel. "Let me grab my jacket." They walked across the property to the barn, where Rob was standing outside one of the stalls with Tommy. Inside, a wobbly-legged calf stood next to its mother, all knobby knees and big eyes. "She was born about an hour ago," Rob said, his voice full of quiet pride. "Strong and healthy." Bella pressed against the stall door, watching in wonder. "She's so little." "She'll grow," Rob assured her. "Give her a few months and she'll be running all over the place." Tommy looked up at Rob with admiration that never got old to see. Her son had needed a positive male presence in his life, and Rob had filled that role without even trying. He taught Tommy about the ranch, about taking care of animals, about hard work and responsibility. But he also taught him about kindness, about helping others, about being the kind of man who stops to care. "Can we name her?" Tommy asked. Rob rubbed his chin, pretending to think about it. "Well, I suppose if you're going to help take care of her, you should have a say in what she's called. What did you have in mind?" "Hope," Tommy said immediately. "We should call her Hope." Rob looked at Lisa and she saw understanding in his eyes. He knew what that name meant, what it represented. "Hope's a fine name," he said softly. "Real fine name." That afternoon, after the kids had gone back to play and Lisa was working in the ranch office, Rob came in with 2 mugs of coffee. He set one on her desk and settled into the chair across from her. "Got something I want to talk to you about," he said. Lisa looked up from the computer, a flutter of worry in her stomach. Had she done something wrong? Was he unhappy with her work? "The ranch is doing better financially than it has in years," Rob continued. "Having you here organizing everything, making sure bills get paid on time, keeping track of expenses, it's made a real difference. I can actually see where my money's going now. I'm glad I could help," Lisa said cautiously. "What I'm saying is, I'd like to give you a raise, bump you up to $35,000. And I've been thinking, that cottage is just sitting there anyway. No sense in charging you rent. So starting next month, you keep your whole paycheck." Lisa felt tears spring to her eyes, something that seemed to happen a lot these days. But they were good tears, grateful tears. "Rob, you don't have to do that." "I know I don't have to. I want to." He took a sip of his coffee. "You've become family, Lisa. You and those kids. This place feels alive again. Feels like it has purpose." "You gave us everything," Lisa said, her voice breaking. "When we had nothing, when no one else would help, you gave us everything." Rob shook his head. "I gave you a chance. You're the one who took it and made something of it. You're the one working hard every day. You're the one raising those good kids. I just opened a door. You walk through it." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, drinking their coffee. Through the window, Lisa could see Tommy and Bella playing with Rusty again. Her son's glasses caught the sunlight. Her daughter's laughter rang out clear and bright. "I called my sister last week," Lisa said. "Told her we're staying, that this is home now. How'd she take it?" "She was happy for us. Said she could hear the difference in my voice, that I sounded like myself again." Lisa smiled. "She wants to come visit for Christmas." "She's welcome any time," Rob said. "We'll make up the guest room in the main house." That evening, they all had dinner together like they did most nights. Rob made his famous chili, and Lisa brought over a salad and cornbread. The kids set the table without being asked, something that had become routine. Over dinner, Rob told stories about the ranch's history, about his father and grandfather who'd worked this same land. He talked about his wife and how much she would have loved having kids around the place. He made them feel connected to something bigger than themselves, part of a legacy. After dinner, while Lisa washed dishes and Rob dried, she thought about that first night in the diner. How desperate and scared she'd been. How certain she was that the world was cold and hard and no one cared about people like her. Rob had proven her wrong. He'd shown her that kindness still existed, that strangers could become family, that rock bottom wasn't the end but sometimes a new beginning. You know what the best part is? Lisa said, handing Rob a clean plate. What's that? I get to teach my kids what you taught me. That when someone needs help, you help them. That kindness matters. That one person really can make a difference. Rob smiled, the kind of smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. Your wife was right, Lisa continued. About kindness being like a river. It flows through you to someone else. You let it flow through you to us. Now I get to let it flow through me to someone else someday. That's how it's supposed to work, Rob agreed. That's exactly how it's supposed to work. Later that night, after the kids were in bed and Lisa was sitting on her small porch looking at the stars, she thought about the stranger she'd been 6 months ago. That scared, desperate woman who'd walked into a diner with $17 and no hope. She thought about how a cowboy in a worn hat had seen past her circumstances to her humanity. How he'd offered her a seat at his table and, in doing so, had offered her a future. Cedar Ridge hadn't been her destination. She'd been trying to get somewhere else, to reach something she thought was waiting for her down the road. But sometimes the place you're meant to be isn't the place you're headed. Sometimes it's the place you break down. Sometimes it's the place where someone stops long enough to see you. Lisa pulled her jacket tighter against the cool evening air and smiled. Tomorrow she'd wake up and make breakfast for her kids. She'd walk them to the bus stop for school. She'd go to work in the ranch office. She'd have lunch with Rob and hear more of his stories. She'd pick up her kids from the bus stop and help with homework. They'd have dinner together, all of them, like a family. It was a simple life. A quiet life. But it was theirs. And it was enough. More than enough. Inside the cottage, she could hear Bella talking in her sleep, probably dreaming about the new calf. She could hear Tommy's steady breathing from the other room, the sounds of her children safe and happy and home. And somewhere in town, in houses and apartments and other small cottages, there were people who'd seen what Rob had done. People who'd witnessed an act of kindness and been changed by it. People who might, when they saw someone struggling, remember the cowboy who'd offered a stranger a seat at his table. Kindness really was like a river, Lisa thought. And rivers don't stop flowing. They just keep moving, touching everything in their path, bringing life wherever they go. She stood up and went inside, ready to rest, ready for tomorrow, ready for whatever came next. Because now she knew something she hadn't known before. She knew that even when things fall apart, even when you're down to your last dollar and your last hope, there are still good people in the world. Sometimes all it takes is one.